Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the Final Frontier.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with me, your host, Rich Matthews, joined as ever by my fellow Trekkers, Mr. Ian Spelling.
Hello, everybody.
And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello.
So today's episode is a slightly unusual one in the sense that it's a theme which we sort of happened across, but all then attacked with some enthusiasm and excitement. But then I, for one, struggled with it, actually, in terms of narrowing it down. So we're going to rank our top 7 villainless episodes, or episodes with no villains, essentially. So Star Trek without a clear antagonist in terms of an individual. I found this one very difficult because you realise how often Star Trek doesn't have a villain. I don't know how you guys found it.
Particularly in the Berman years, I think.
Yeah, well, sometimes a bigger idea is the villain or the driving force of an episode as opposed to a creature, a person, an alien, a ship, a species, which is a good thing, by the way. I know that the Berman era gets a lot of crap from people, but there are some very Roddenberry-esque episodes or episodes that Roddenberry would approve of. Done during the Berman era. I've always said I sometimes think he doesn't get a fair shake, and doing this made me realize that even more, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree totally. There's a lot of, as you say, big idea work in the Berman era, which and in some ways more expertly, more diligently worked through than when Roddenberry oversaw things, I think. But it's also so illustrating of biases and things, as we've already seen trends among our 3 tastes and our influences. And I tried desperately to not allow that to happen again, but inevitably, because we focus on favourites, that's what I sort of find myself leaning towards the Berman era, inevitably. But I'm not that happy with my list. I feel like it's the first time where I could have spent a very long time collating the list. So what I've tried to do to reflect that one in my choices is include things which I might not have included elsewhere deliberately, so that I'm not repeating myself too much in terms of other things we've discussed already. And I'm pretty sure that I haven't really discussed any of my choices in my 7 elsewhere so far in the pod. Unusually, I'm going to do 3 honourable mentions before I get to my number 7, and I feel bad about this, but in the end, it's that this is how I reconciled it. As I said, that I tried to do episodes we haven't really done very much before because of the theme. So, for instance, 2 of my honourable mentions we've talked about a lot, which are The Devil in the Dark and City on the Edge of Forever. The only frustrating thing for me is that they are my 2 favourite. In this category, especially TOS episodes, but yeah, we've done both at length, and also because partially I feel like they slightly fake out the villain rather than there not being a villain, if you see what I mean. The Guardian and then the Horta and things. It's just in the end it works, but anyway, I don't want to dwell on them too much. And then my other honourable mention is Eye of the Needle from Voyager, which I particularly liked, because of the whole bait and switch of the person they're talking through to in the Alpha Quadrant being dead for 20 years before they even were thrown to the Delta Quadrant. I really liked that, but it didn't quite make the cut. So acknowledging that bias, my number 7 is Cause and Effect, Season 5, Episode 18 of The Next Generation, which is, I think, a very skilled time loop puzzle where the only real antagonist is the crew's own mistakes. If you want to sort of have a model of how failure is important for learning, cause and effect is a great example. And I just love the way Data sets himself a trail of breadcrumbs to clue himself in, and then you get a lovely little payoff at the end where they finally stop the ship exploding. That Kelsey Grammer appears in an old Monster Maroon as Captain Bateson with a fairly poignant coda. In the best way, it's a good example of pure sci-fi problem solving. That, as we said, it's a nice idea. It's a nice piece of science fiction. It's a nice conundrum, and it's that thing. It's a working of the problem, and it's competency in action, and it's just. I find it to be a very satisfying episode, and the fact it has no villain is even better. Ian?
My number 7 is actually Carbon Creek.
Oh.
I don't often show Enterprise a lot of love. It's usually up there, and also ran just behind something.
Oh.
And I really enjoy this particular episode. You've got mentions of Lucille Ball in there. You've got mentions of the Twilight Zone in there. It is interesting to me that half the cast isn't in the episode. That it really focuses on this show's version of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, for argument's sake. They're big three, so to speak. I thought it was one of Jolene Blaylock's best performances as T'Pol. I loved the period element of it, the car, or automobile as they call it, if I remember correctly, the 50s angle to it, and I just thought it was also a good episode for Vulcans, and a good episode for T'Pol, and a good episode for fans of Star Trek history as well. And I thought it was a good blend of sci-fi and, should we just call it historical fiction, right?
Yeah, period drama.
Period drama. I just thought it was one of the very, very, very solid Enterprise episodes, and sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. And I figured since we had 7 on this one, that it deserved that spot in my list.
Yeah, it feels very rounded, which often Enterprise struggled with, I think, in that sense. It feels very complete.
Yeah. Especially as a standalone, no question.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Toby?
My number 7 is the first of 2 Voyager picks, actually. And I think they're both really interesting science fiction concepts. It's Course Oblivion from season 5. It's where essentially the whole episode you're dealing with a doppelganger version of Voyager, which relates back to the episode Demon. I think it's a really well-paced episode, although I would say the makeup doesn't necessarily hold up particularly well. I kind of ignore that because I enjoy the story. I like how the different crewmates react when they realise they aren't the real Voyager crew. And I sort of love J-May's stubbornness that she just won't change course. Even though Chakotay all the way through is like, we've got to go out, we've got to turn around. I think this is sort of one of those episodes where it kind of like does show her flaws and explores that a little bit. I do think would the real J-May be like this? I don't know. I mean, that's hard to sort of guess, and I think it's actually genuinely quite devastating when their journey turns out to be hopeless, and the real Voyager finally gets their distress call, but it's too late. I just think it's a really compelling episode dealing with an area which isn't usually explored with in Star Trek, with the doppelganger aspect.
Yeah. So the question is was she not a mean enough son of a bitch for you? Is what you're saying?
Well, no. I think maybe she was, but to the crew.
Great. Okay, interesting. So my number 6 is one of the often cited great episodes of Deep Space Nine. But I often struggle. There's a lot more I put above it. So again, sort of for this list, it fits though. And it reflects what I think is a trend in my choices, which is a sort of immediately when I started thinking about No Villains, I sort of moved towards, although yes, the concepts, I actually found myself veering more towards character focus and family areas, that sort of thing, and those interrelationships more. So my number 6 is The Visitor.
I love this episode.
From Deep Space Nine. Yeah, which is which has come up before on the pod, but it's essentially the accident which flings Sisko into this sort of shifting temporal anomaly, reappearing periodically across Jake's life, played in adulthood by Tony Todd as an author obsessed with saving his father from this sort of shifting temporal existence, and the fact that it's just an accident, that there isn't any nefarious reason and there isn't some overarching conspiracy, which again is something which New Trek seem to hate the idea of any form of coincidence or accident, and the fact that there's such a beautiful story of devotion and sacrifice, with such a huge amount of pathos and just tear-jerking emotion, especially from Tony Todd, who previously, of course, in Star Trek terms, we'd only really thought of as Kern, so very broad Klingon strokes, rather than something, and even outside of that, it's Candyman, and it's such a lovely acting masterclass from him in this one episode, picking up a character we already know and giving him nuance and depth, and it's just really nice, and thoughtful. And yeah, similar to The Inner Light, admittedly, and that probably has The Inner Light has a better sci-fi conceit in terms of the satellite beaming this entire lifetime of experiences. It's the legacy of a species into Picard, but equally, this idea of a life given over to to dealing with grief actually resets. It's kind of an interesting philosophical, epistemological argument. Oh, sorry, ding, that's for Ian.
I approve.
So it's a lovely episode. Ian?
I'm going with Nepenthe. From Picard. Again, another show that I am not as fond of as a couple of the other Star Trek shows. But for the nostalgia geek in me, I love this episode.
Yeah.
The moments with Picard and Riker and Troy are lovely, as are the moments with Kestra. In this episode, I thought Lulu Wilson was wonderful as the young Kestra. It's a gorgeously shot episode. Do we need to see Riker cooking again? I'm not so sure, but
you want pizza, right? You want pizza though when you're watching it.
I laughed. I did laugh. I mean, it gave me a little chuckle. Somebody had a sense of humor in the writers' room, and Frakes sold it.
Yeah, when you saw season 3, you were like, "Oh, he stopped making pizza."
Yeah, now he's getting serious. But I just thought it was a beautifully done episode, kind of a calm before the storm type of episode. And I also thought, I'm a huge Issa Briones fan, and I thought she did a beautiful job as Soji in this episode as well. I was always disappointed that we didn't get enough of the various characters that she played. We saw a lot of them, but we didn't get enough development, and this had a nice bit of development in it as well. So all in all, a very good episode that gives you the emotional scaffolding for what's to come later, for a number of the characters, actually.
Yeah, agreed.
So very high on my list.
My 6th spot is a Next Gen episode from season 4. It's Remember Me.
Oh.
Good choice.
I think it's probably Dots Crusher best episode. Certainly, great showcase for Gates McFadden. She actually is given impetus and agency and something to do in this episode. I think we all agreed she was kind of underutilized elsewhere. But
you're not the one when she shags her grandmother's old spectral lover. No.
Yeah. No. I've erased that from my memory.
Green smoke is everything, man. Anyway.
I think it's just a great. It's a great example of a bottle episode. Everything is set on the ship. It relates back to a season 1 episode when no one has gone before. it brings back the Traveller with, I'm going to say his surname wrong, but Eric Menyuk.
Who was in the short list for Data, I think, if that's correct.
Data, yep.
Yeah. And I just think it's got a really interesting twist. It's one I didn't see coming. I liked, although they kind of telegraph it a little bit, but I still hadn't. The idea of it didn't settle until later. But I do love the scene where she goes onto the bridge and Picard's there all by himself, and she's like, "Where's the crew?" And he's like, "Oh, we've never needed one before." It's a nice comic beat. And I just think it's a very entertaining episode, and so Gates is fantastic in this. And I think she did her own stunt, right, where she was like hanging in order to be pulled through the portal.
Well, she's a dancer and trained and all sorts of stuff like that, isn't she? So she's incredibly adept at those things. It doesn't surprise me if that's the case. I didn't know that, but it would make a degree of sense. She was always game for giving anything a go, which is why it's initially sometimes so frustrating she didn't get more to get her teeth into, I think. And certainly we know from Picard season 3, when she was given the opportunity, she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. Great episode. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one. It's one of those ones where I like Wesley a lot. Okay, so my number 5, again, sort of mirroring yours, Ian. My number 5 is New Eden from Discovery, season 2, episode 2, which is a Frakes episode, admittedly, directed by Jonathan Frakes, but it was the one which gave me real hope for Star Trek's future. So it's the one where so Pike's in it. It's the one where they use the spore drive to go to the Beta Quadrant, and they go down and discover a settlement of humans. They were saved by divine intervention in World War III, and the Red Angel and all of that stuff was the one who transported them. And it becomes it's a classic ethical dilemma episode, but in this case science versus faith, and it's really interesting, having Burnham as the skeptic and Pike being a little bit more spiritual, and that sort of it was given the humanist nature of Roddenberry's Trek, and how sometimes religion is very quickly painted as an antagonist. Actually, it's what makes this one so interesting, and for this, and as they grapple with what I think they don't call it the Prime Directive in this one, do they? They call it it's still General Order 1, isn't it? Not the Prime Directive at this point. From interfering when they know that the radioactive debris from the planet's rings are going to destroy the colony, and and they don't want to wipe it out. Do they intervene? Do they not? Whether the religious faith of it is a problem about. Do they reveal the truth about the angel and the way they were rescued, rather than advanced aliens? It's just it was a really shining moment for me in Discovery, and set the table for Strange New Worlds and what's possible. And although interestingly, that also made it harder then with Discovery for me, because it showed they could do it, and they didn't really do this very much, which is a shame. So this is my favourite episode of Discovery.
I remember we had this chat at the time, didn't we, where we both got to this, because I stopped after season 2 on Discovery, but we got to this episode, and I remember both of us saying, "Oh, this is it. This is where they turn it around and it becomes Star Trek." And for me, obviously, it didn't work. But
no, it didn't. I agree, it still didn't. But it did ultimately birth Strange New Worlds, which, while in a slightly more questionable position at the moment after season 3, nonetheless has been the best bit of new Star Trek in a long time. So, Ian.
Number 5, One Small Step. Okay. Star Trek Voyager.
Good choice.
Science and science fiction blending, space and space history blending. Latest guest appearance by Phil Morris, who dates back to the original series as one of the kids in a very famous episode, of course, Miri. I just really enjoyed this episode a lot. I think it's got its heart in the right place. I think it's intriguing. I think it's different. I just like all the name drops in this episode of real-life astronauts and then fictional astronauts. It does a very good job of blending real and alternate history together into a very entertaining hour of television. I thought it was one where they really nailed it on Voyager. And, Phil Morris has all these connections as well. His, dad starred with Leonard Nimoy on Mission Impossible. There's lots of cool tie-ins with this particular episode, and it stands on its own as well.
So my fifth spot is an Enterprise episode from season 3. It's similar to...
Good choice. Really good choice.
I think it has a really...
Bit of a trip. Oh,
I mean, I love the fake out at the beginning with Trip's funeral. I think that's excellent. I think the idea about the ethical dilemma about cloning is more potent than in... because it sort of deals with similar themes to Voyager's Tuvix. Mm-hmm. There's definitely the same moral debate about it, but I think the difference is Tuvix was created by accident, whereas Sim is deliberately grown under the orders of Archer by Phlox, and that gives them personal responsibility for his life, and ultimately the fact that they kill him, he makes a sacrifice. And I just to add on top of that, I think it does actually show how important Trip was, how crucial he was to the fight against the Xindi. And it's a really difficult ethical dilemma. I mean, they create new life just to kill it to save another. It's a fascinating story, and I actually think it's
Conatrin is really good. In that, really good.
Maybe we're doing no villains, but maybe Archer is the villain of the piece in this.
Well, maybe that's another episode. When are the captains the bad guys? Because we can think of some. Certainly Janeway and Sisko have done that. My fourth spot we've already touched on, which is its Nepenthe. Same as your previous one, Ian. Although I was thinking... so this is one of those weird things, but because of Rura Penthe in Star Trek 6, I always want to call it Nepenthe. For like some sort of pronunciation consistency, even though one's Klingon, but whatever. Also, I think it sounds better, Nepenthe, but no, it's not. For the same reasons you gave, I won't go over it too much. It's just that it was an oasis in Picard in season 1, and I would have given anything for an equivalent episode in season 2, certainly. And it totally signalled what then, thankfully, season 3 did, which was that sense of family warmth, the chemistry between the next gen actors, their known camaraderie, and it's just poignant and sad. And it's just so tragic that Riker and Troy had lost their son, and just it's amazing that essentially a domestic episode in the middle of all this Sturm and Drang of the way they did Picard was the best episode in the entire first season. And again, to mirror what my choices are, this is where I lean when I think of No Villains, when you go there. And it was so heartening actually to realise that I liked this episode as much as I did, because as I think as you said, Ian, sometimes it's hard to find stuff in some of these series that you really do like as much as the others, and it's genuine. And I find myself there's not a lot of Picard other than season 3 that I particularly would watch, but this episode was part of that. I would see this as a key join. So if you're going to binge Next Generation, pick your favourites. This is a key, vital connective episode, both in terms of tone and connection and just mood. And it's a lovely episode and tragic and sad, but also a lovely reunion. So great episode.
I concur.
So Ian, you're number 4.
Darmok, Next Generation.
Oh!
Great episode. What really more can you say? Other than, the Twilight Zone did it first, but it's a great episode. Beings trying to communicate and having to communicate to survive. Really no visible enemy to speak of, and just two great actors acting great.
Mm.
It's as simple as that. I just, to this day, appreciate the episode. I'm a big fan of something, again, the Berman era did a lot of, which is bringing back people we love in completely different roles. There are a lot of actors out there. The casting department had to know, and obviously did know, that, hey, this guy was huge in Star Trek 2 and as Terrell, and hey, let's bring him back. And it was just, Paul Winfield was such a good actor. And there are roles that from other projects that he did, I always like everything he did, even if I don't always love the movies that he was
Like
in.
he's great in The Terminator. No one ever thinks of him in that. And
Right.
Yeah.
Mars Attacks. He almost steals the show as the general. There's just lots of good stuff that he was in, and this was a role that it reminded me a little bit of also when Paul Sorvino was on Star Trek. Like, what? Paul Sorvino?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Hey, bada boom, and it's none of that, is it?
Right. But here, this is an actor returning to Star Trek in a totally different role. And they did it with Merritt Buttrick, and they did it with Robin Curtis, and they did it with, you name it. There were a ton of people with connections to previous tracks. David Warner, they brought back. So Darmok is very high on my list for the nostalgia element and for the standalone element of it, and for the fact that it's just good two-hander drama within an ensemble series.
I went to an interesting talk at the recent Destination Star Trek in Blackpool in the UK, which was with an exolinguistic academic talking about alien languages, and everyone went, "Ooh, Darmok!" and she rolled her eyes and said, "Oh well, because it's all the same idiom-based verbal languages, and there's so much more interesting." It's like you could see everyone sort of go, "But the metaphor thing." It's good, isn't it? And she was like, yeah, but, I'd much rather... And I said, what about the music episode in Strange New Worlds? She went, yeah, see, that's more interesting. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's a great episode. I agree with you. And Paul Winfield, that's a hard gig, actually. And I don't think if you think of it as being a hard gig, because he does such a good job.
Yep. Also reminded me of Enemy Mine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Strange New World paid homage to Enemy Mine as well recently.
Indeed. And I do think Darmok is probably a slightly more stronger spiritual homage to Enemy Mine, though, which is also interesting. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
I was just going to say the thing that really stands out to me is that this is a story obviously about communication, and then you've got one of the actors is so heavily made up that the only way that he can really communicate is with the eyes and the tone of the voice, and I think that's something that isn't necessarily discussed. I think that's and that's a talent of the actor as well.
Yeah, his moment of happiness when they realise they finally nailed their communication is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, find me an actor with more expressive eyes than Paul Winfield. I mean, talk about an actor acting with eyes.
Yeah,
it was another reason why he was a very good choice for the role. Yeah,
absolutely, because that way he really sells that sort of dead-eyed slave to the SETI eel, doesn't he? In Wrath of Khan, he does that glaze thing is chilling. Yeah,
and the interesting thing with that was there were people who thought that scene was overacted, and I never agreed with that.
Me either. No. Yeah, I think I agree totally. No, he's great. So, Toby.
My fourth spot is the second Voyager episode that I mentioned. I'm going to give the alternative title and see if you can guess what it is. This is The Weird Planet Where Time Moved Very Fast and So Did the People Who Lived There.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Season 6. I've always really liked this episode. There's obviously a clear thematic comparison with the original series Wink of an Eye. It's referenced in the episode title. And the scenes where the Voyager crew are seemingly frozen in time, but actually just exist in a different time frame. But I always really liked this episode, and I think there's it's a really strong. When we did our guest appearances, Daniel Day Kim, I think he's really good in this episode. Yeah, he's probably best known for Lost, would we say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
But it's just it's a very poignant and sort of poetic story, and it's told mostly from the other point of view. It's not the Voyager crew, and it's just I like the rapid evolution of society, where they go from like worshipping the stars to suddenly having weapons, and Voyager is the sky ship is in trouble, and then you've got the whole scene with the EMH when he goes down to the planet and he's actually there years rather than because they have problems bringing him back. You know, it's just a very solid, enjoyable, great scientific science fiction, I should say, storyline.
Well, interestingly, my number 3 is Blink of an Eye.
There we go.
So there you go. We you and I don't often line up quite like that, but no, absolutely. So not much to add to what you did. I particularly like, in retrospect, thinking about it, because as you say, it's mostly told from the fast time perspective rather than on Voyager. But they would have had the fact it sort of overcomes the Prime Directive. They would have been in a right old pickle, which we've seen many times before. But by the time they actually, the primitive species has moved on so rapidly that they actually save Voyager and get them out of their orbit, don't they? And I really like that as a conceit. But again, it's also similar interestingly to what we've seen before, which is future technology being worshipped by a civilization. Yeah, I really love this episode. It's one of my all-time favorite Voyagers.
One of the key themes is, you know, how perception shapes reality, essentially, isn't it? And how myth through science turns into knowledge.
This is a good example of playing it out to the nth degree, and the rigor of the scientific advisors on this is really good, I think. So Ian, that means it's straight to you. In with your number 3.
Number 3 is The Inner Light.
Classic episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. We've covered this in best episodes. We've covered this in guest appearances. We've covered this in a number of ways. It's simply one of the best Next Generation episodes and happens to not have an overarching villain in it. I'm going to steal words you just used. Poetic and sad. I think it is. It's just beautifully done. Gives us a glimpse into a possible other life for a beloved character. It has a great guest performance in it. It's visually interesting. The score for the episode is absolutely perfect. It's just one of the best episodes of any of Star Trek shows out there, and I'm going to put it at number 3 for a good reason.
Yeah, it's absolutely no argument. It's a brilliant episode, and I love the fact that, you know, you got his son in it, and Patrick Stewart's son in it, and again, it's that thing which, when you're not episodic, Star Trek loses something, which is this pulls off quite a feat in 44 minutes or whatever it would have been at that point, probably 46, 47. It successfully makes you care about this whole civilization. Right. That's incredible to do.
And it tells a whole story.
From top to bottom. And yet still with a framing device, a framing storyline as well. And that's a hard trick. That's a writer's room. Then the you know, those allocated to the episode firing on all cylinders that it could come through so effectively. And the fact we follow Picard's journey, don't we? We miss our regular characters in that context as he does, but you feel for the surrogate characters, the surrogate family he gets, and it's just, it's beautiful.
It's interesting that you picked Inner Light in that spot, because I've picked a corresponding episode that's often compared to it, which is Deep Space Nine's Far Beyond the Stars.
Aha.
You know, it's got that similar conceit, but I think, I mean, it's just a tour de force performance from Avery in this, you know, in the two roles, Cisco and Benny Russell, and he directed the episode as well, which makes it, you know, even more impressive. You know, it's not a new topic for Star Trek, racism, but I think this is probably the best Star Trek's ever done tackling it, and it you know, it's made all the more powerful because it just features a host of black actors, and it's directed by a black man, so there's all the kind of stuff that you can say about the background side of it as well. It's not particularly subtle, but it's also, I think, relevant. It's still relevant to today. And it is very interesting that they never mention the word racism at all in the whole episode. It's just all kind of on screen. And it's not just racism, it covers bigotry and sexism, and it's just a very clever script, and it's really well portrayed by all of the cast, and I think all of the cast really enjoyed this episode as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you see everyone out of their makeup working together, because we've seen them all in other roles in other series without their makeup, but it's interesting to see them all freed up, and it treads a fine line, doesn't it? Because it sort of adopts the mannered delivery of the period, but does so in a pleasing way. It could easily have not been. It could have been a bit annoying, a bit like Picard on the holodeck, the big goodbye and whatnot, that stuff. It could so easily have been like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and I think again that's that step up that DS9 was often able to take. And
it's very good casting that they chose the baddies in Bunny Ears from Deep Space Nine to play the racist crooked cops.
Yeah.
That's just a really smart move, I think.
Yeah, agreed. We know Ian has a lot of love for this episode.
Yes,
indeed. Which is interesting because my number 2 is also a Deep Space Nine episode. It's Only a Paper Moon.
That was on my shortlist.
Mm-hmm.
Hard pressed to think of a character who grows more in any series, let alone Star Trek, than Nog, and how he represents how the transformation of the Ferengi under the steership of the DS9 writers and team and actors, and the fact that it deals with trauma, addiction, codependency, denial, fear of death, phantom pain, all of these just incredibly complex human problems being experienced by a Ferengi on a holosuite, and is helped through it all by a holo character, by Vic Fontaine, and it's so just the fact that you've got Nog losing his leg, and that alone is a major thing for a series to do. Now it's Star Trek, so of course he can be fixed in inverted commas, but it's interesting to explore the fact he would still experience all these elements of grief and trauma and denial that you'd think maybe the future technology and medicine would make you would free you from, but no. And the reality of the war and the impact it's going to have, and of Nog's choices to be in Starfleet, and how then you've got Ezri coming in and sort of as a catalyst, and also interestingly one of those lovely rub points with the Dax character, with Ezri coming in, a character that's known Nog for a long time but is not entirely that character, and that new perspective that she brings to the Dax and to the situation is really interesting. That combination of deep knowledge with a young mind, it works very well for this story. And Aaron Eisenberg is just amazing in this, just deeply, deeply brilliant. And it's so sad that he's gone in life at last, because he was so good in this. And it's just a beautiful story. And I think this is a word we keep coming back to, and sort of the poetic, the beauty of the stories when there isn't a villain, and
Mm-hmm.
the villain here is trauma and war. Not the founders, not the Vorta, not the Jem'Hadar, but just the implication and the repercussions of being involved in such a conflict, and then trying to come out of yourself to reintegrate into life and society, to accept help from your friends and family, and be whole. And it's just a wonderful individual episode in that arc, and really showed what Star Trek could do and what DS9 did so brilliantly which was to combine the episodic stories like this, the character stories within the wider arc, and make it develop and inform both character and that arc without being directly about anything in it. And it's just sublime storytelling and drama in general, and a superb piece of Star Trek. Ian.
Number 2, the Doomsday Machine.
Classic.
Now, is the Machine a villain? I wonder. But it is one of my favorite episodes of the show. I will also say that among the remastered episodes of the original series, I think it's one of the ones that benefited the most because so much screen time is devoted to seeing, the horn of death coming at us. I just love the concept of the Enterprise being the thing that might have to die to save the day, and that came in handy many years later in Star Trek 3, right? I mean, we saw it done with all the protocols and whatnot, but I just thought Doomsday nailed it. I know a lot of people do and don't love William Wyndham's performance. I remember reading that William Wyndham himself wasn't a giant fan of the episode or his own performance in it. I always thought he just played an over-the-top character over the top and panicked and disgraced and angry and lashing out and confused and yet still human at the core. I found all that in there. And I love Shatner's performance complementing his performance when he calls him Matt. Really, interesting stuff for me. And I love that at the end of the episode, he says that, he calms Spock down, who was concerned about how history will look back at Decker. And he says that the character will have been died in the line of duty. And I thought that was a very Star Trek, very human reaction to the events of the episode, that it built to something special in the show and something special when it comes to Kirk specifically. And also, you could literally see Spock's respect for Kirk grow in that moment. I always thought it was a key moment in their relationship, whether or not it was just my opinion, me putting my thinking into what I saw and heard on the screen in that particular moment. Also between those two actors in the scene. That episode still holds up for me. And like I said, I think it's the one that benefits the most from the remaster. Just because Planet Killer is just such a stark image. I put it this way. I loved and thought that was scary. Whereas I always thought the volleyball on that black stick in Star Trek 4 was fairly laughable and didn't strike me as a threat to the planet.
Okay.
The thing in Doomsday Machine looked like a planet killer.
I think if you remember, I picked him as one of my favorite guest stars. I love that episode as well. I'm right there with you. My second spot is Next Gen episode from season 2. I think it's probably the best of the first 3 seasons. It's Measure of a Man. Now, I guess there is kind of a villain.
There is a villain in
Bruce
Measure
Maddox,
of a Man, yeah.
but he's not really a villain. He's not really.
He's just a jerk.
He's just trying to do his job. I think
it's all because of him, though.
Yeah. But I think it's a really strong story. It's about human rights and the human condition, which ironically is explored through the life of an automaton. But what is sentience? Who are we? These are questions that philosophers have struggled to answer for centuries. And it's interesting as a court episode, essentially, that this was written by a former attorney, and I think you can kind of see that because Riker's role as the prosecutor, he does a really good job. I mean, he's really convincing. And I think that Picard's journey to where he gets to, the fact that it's open-ended, it doesn't provide a definitive answer. I think that's very, very strong. And I think this is those kind of questions, who are we, what are we about, I think, that's just classic philosophical science fiction drama. Not necessarily science fiction, but just a classic theme. And for me, this episode is sort of what Star Trek is all about, is exploring that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a pass. I think he is the villain. But
it's not a villain in the traditional sense in that he's trying to kill anything.
No, true.
He is the antagonist.
Yeah.
He's not the villain.
Yeah, but we'll allow that hair to be split.
Yeah, he's wrong. Let's just accept it.
And did you know that the title of the episode, Measure of a Man, comes from a quote from Martin Luther King?
No. What's the quote?
I can give you the full quote.
Yes, please.
It's the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
Quite.
Which is obviously very appropriate to the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Definitely.
Well, brilliant. Okay, so that brings us to my number one. So my number one is, again, very much a distillation of everything that this sort of list has moved towards for me, which is it's family. From Star Trek The Next Generation.
Wow, good choice.
Season 4, Episode 2.
Interesting choice, because that's going to come up in a later pod, which is why I didn't pick it.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. This...
Favorite one-word episode?
That's the one. That's the one.
And yours is...
Tune in, ladies and gents.
Yours is Darmok, is it?
Yes.
I love that they didn't just drop the Borg storyline from Best of Both Worlds immediately, which previously you would have thought they would do, or they would, not a full reset button necessarily, but certainly not address it in such a grounded, real, non-hyperbolic, non-melodramatic way. And it gives you just this incredible showcase of Patrick Stewart, really, and what he can do with the character, and taking him into Picard's domestic life, where he grew up, back to France and the vineyard, and his brother, a brilliant Jeremy Kemp, who again isn't a villain, but he's he has the best sort of pompous lip purse pout that I can think of. That he does is just really brilliant. And also just to show you a little bit of outside the Starfleet bubble as to what someone like Picard could do in terms of his science, his scientific mind, his application of what his career could be, and the projects he's drawn to and offered to and courted for while he's there, but how he can't, and that reality actually of what, as he's tempted by that and drawn to it as a possibility, reveals to him that actually he still belongs on the Enterprise, and that's where his life path goes. But the mud fight with his brother, years of resentment between the both, bubbling up into catharsis and laughter, and then that laughter turning into deep, profound sobbing and despair, finally released by Picard for what the Borg did to him and how they dehumanized him. You won't find a better piece of writing and acting anywhere in TV, I think. It's just really, really, really well done and deeply moving for a writing and performance. I mean, I know it was originally a premise by a writer whose name is escaping me, but it was adapted by Ron Moore, who showed his unerring ability to tap into the deeply human in these potentially outlandish scenarios. And I know people describe it frequently as an episode about nothing, but I think that couldn't be further from the truth. It's an episode about everything. And
Roddenberry hated it.
Yeah,
because I was reading up about this, and like he read Ron Moore's outline or first draft and just absolutely said, we're not doing this. It's got nothing to do with Star Trek. And then I guess it was Berman and maybe Pillay who basically said to Ron, go ahead and write it, we'll deal with Gene. And I believe this is the sort of the point where Gene Roddenberry stepped back from Next Gen.
And rightly so.
So God knows what Berman and Pillay said to him.
Listen, Gene, you're a big man, but you're out of shape. And we do this for a living. I'm
in a tall glass.
Yeah, exactly. Core, Molkane. No, so I'm glad they did, because to me, so you go from the really big bombastic pew pew sci-fi of the best of both worlds, and they continue the storyline in a small, intimate character way that's deeply poignant and revealing and philosophical. And I think that's the moment where you can go, okay, this Star Trek's now functioning on a higher level. And from that point on, it genuinely felt like the sky was the limit for Next Gen, because it's like, this is just great stuff. And we know that was Pillar's focus. Make it about the people. By all means, see them in these situations and put them in these big sci-fi ideas and concepts and draw them out. But at the heart of it has to be the people. And that's what makes it work. Ian?
We're number one, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So many times we do our runners-up at the end, right?
Yeah.
And number 7, A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm going to go with a 5.5 way tie for number 1.
Holy crap. Here we go.
Holy crap is right. So the 0.5 is chain of command.
Hold on, let me just put the kettle on.
Huh. Fuck off. All right. Chain of command is my 0.5 because it has a villain.
It has a villain, definitely.
Obviously,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But I do want to throw in Jellicoe there and say that he's not the villain. He's an antagonist, and it goes back to the conversation about Maddox.
Yeah.
Okay? So, trust me, I know the Cardassians are our villains there. All right, so I'm going to break this down to Duet. Okay? I'm going to break this down to The Visitor. I'm going to break this down to Far Beyond the Stars and The Devil in the Dark. Now, a couple of those have the same thing in common, which is what we have discussed before, that there's something out there that is the problem that has to be dealt with or solved, right? Or it's us reacting to something that we're not comfortable with. So it is a type of villain, but it's not a villain. But I found myself, it was very funny, I forgot which one of you gentlemen mentioned this at the beginning of this whole conversation, but for the rest of them, I really tried to pick episodes that were not the obvious choices.
Yeah.
And here, cliches are cliches for a reason. There's truth in it, right? I think our finest episodes without villains are still some of our finest episodes because they're our finest episodes. So I have to go with The City on the Edge of Forever here.
Okay.
As my number 1. I just don't think you get a better filmed episode. You don't get a sadder episode. I think it's the most futuristic, anarchic, archaic. I mean, I'm going to throw all sorts of
Any
adjectives out there. Yeah, all the icks. It's a very icky episode, and it's you got to be stoic to not be touched by the episode. I just think it works on multiple levels. It's good science fiction. It's good Star Trek. It's good just pure storytelling. It's a good love story. It's a good bro episode for our 3 main characters on the show. It made unbelievable use of the backlot at Paramount / Desilu. It has everything in the world going for it. It stands the test of time. It always will. And to this day, I think if you said to me, what's the one episode of any Star Trek that you would watch or take with you on the desert island, it's one. It's number 1.
Okay.
No question in my book.
Well, I'll be very phlegmatic about it.
My number 1 is Next Gen episode, also from the first 3 seasons. It's Data's Day from season 2. I just really love this episode. It's slightly ahead of Measure of a Man, although I think that's the best episode of the first 3 seasons. I think this one, in terms of not having a villain, and we sort of mentioned that Maddox is potentially in that antagonistic bracket, but this one really doesn't have a bad guy in it. It's just a great vehicle for Brent. I mean, I guess you could say that the Vulcan ambassador, maybe that she turns out that she's a Romulan, so maybe you could say there's a villain aspect of it, but there's no villain in terms of, like, again, it's not an antagonist and it's not revealed until later. But it's for me, it's a great story, and again, it's another bottle show. I love seeing the different aspects of life on the Enterprise D through the eyes of Data and his thoughts on his crewmates, which he sort of he's writing to Maddox, sort of explaining his day. I love the whole Chief and Keiko dynamic and what's happening with their wedding, the cold feet, and that sort of gets sorted out on its own without Data's interference. And there's one bit which I really, really love, and it's after the reveal with the Romulans, and Picard basically wants to go back and confront the Romulans, and Data sort of puts in his message to Maddox that he estimates that Picard, there's a 13% chance that he'll follow regulation Starfleet orders to return to Federation space, and Picard inevitably doesn't do that. He chases the Romulan ship down. I really kind of love that moment that Data, in the way that he is, that he computes that aspect of it. But it's a great episode. Again, it's sort of, I mentioned it, it's borderline in terms of if there is a villain. I don't think there is, which is why I've included it. But it's a lovely, fun episode, and it involves Data, who's one of my favourite characters in all of Star Trek.
I respect the choice. I just think it's too high up there to be number one.
Interesting.
The thing is, I had the Inner Light in my short list, and the reason why I didn't include it, it probably would be very high in my list, is because I think I will discuss it elsewhere in other episodes that we're doing, and so I kind of tried to pick ones which weren't the obvious. I had Sarek as an episode,
beautiful,
from Next Gen, which I loved that episode, and that's another brilliant performance by Patrick Stewart
and Mark Leonard.
Yeah.
Great all round, and for me, better than Unification. So
yeah.
I have to be honest though, this was one of the toughest ones
really
to
hard.
do, and I know we all left out some of our favorite episodes and some of what are regarded the best, and I said at the top of this that I went out of my way to choose ones that weren't obvious to me.
Me too.
But then when it came to the best, I had to go with the tried and true, because those are the episodes that made me love Star Trek. That's part of the reason I'm sitting here today, is because of the 5.5 that I mentioned.
See, I found it really hard,
one.
except for my number one. The one,
Interesting.
As soon as we said what it was, I was like, well, family was the first thing in my mind. So I trusted.
Not even anywhere on my list, which is interesting.
So I trusted that. So
I would just add that if I was to pick my absolute favourite in terms of this subject, I probably would have put in City on the Edge of Forever in my number one spot. But I decided just to rule that out, and because I wanted to pick episodes that we haven't discussed before, which is why I did it.
yeah, so great.
Yeah, and it's funny you did that. I completely agree with you, and I understand your logic, no pun intended, but the best is the best, and so I just said, I got to go with it.
Mine's the best of the rest, maybe.
Predictability be damned. Logic dictates that I go with the best.
Indeed, well.
And thus I have.
And I would not, oh God, I would not debate you on that. You'd be wise to not, I can't remember the quote now from Wrath of Khan. I would never remind you of that which you know so well.
Yes.
Brilliant. So great. That's our pick of the Star Trek episodes with no villains, which it turned out to be an incredibly broad topic, which included quite a lot of Star Trek, as it happened. So an interesting and varied choices from us all, and more so, in fact, than some of our other categories. So let us know what you think. Either drop us a line through our email or through social media. All the information is in the description. And then rate and review the episode, and whether it made you mad or not. Great. And other than that, we'll see you next time beyond the final frontier.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
Ta-ra, bit.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again and see you next episode, Beyond.